a little girl who suffered a face burn, and that's the situation. In a primary position, normal, I would say slightly ectopic, but unfortunately these pictures came all the way from Congo, so no high resolution, but there is no corneal sufferance. And this is quite frequent in children, even with lack of thalamus. Very often children have no impact because there are the typical corneal mechanisms at work. Here in a secondary position, instead, the situation is different. We do have a lack of thalamus, but still acceptable, I would say, in terms of eyelid closure. So we have an eyelid closing, but we have an eyelid which is completely overturned without any damage to the tarsus. So we should begin and think how to reconstruct such an eyelid. So begin and think of the answers, because from now on we're going to talk about the possible responses or answers to clinical questions. So how to reconstruct it with a cutler beard flap, that is to say tarsal conjunctival flap coming from the bottom, to reconstruct the upper lid, or by means of a graft harvested from the buccal mucosa, or just with a skin graft. So let's see what you say. Very well. Okay. So the cutler beard flap, certainly not. Because it would reconstruct the whole lid and both lid lamellae. So why is it that 76% of you said that tarsal conjunctival flap? We said at the beginning that there was no damage on the tarsus. So why do you want to get into the mucosa? There isn't any damage on the tarsus, so no damage to the posterior lamellae. So probably 18% of you is right in saying skin graft. Okay, so it is actually skin graft. And the skin graft to be harvested where? And in this specific case, this is the question. So for the contralateral lid or the other lid from behind the ear, supraclavicularly, or the volar forearm. Okay, here we are. That's right. So here we have no contralateral lid because we have no blepharochalasis. Okay, retroauricular skin can be used. And then a supraclavicular and volar forearm. But there is a very specific rule here. Everything that gets away from the color of the lid is equally detached or away from the rest of the body. So behind the ear, we have the most similar color. Above the collarbone, it's even more distant. And on the forearm, it becomes a patchwork. So, and because the color and the texture is entirely different. So once we have taken our graft and implanted it, how should we treat the patient? Just antibiotic cream or a bourdonnais, so a suture, frost suture, so a traction suture, or merely antibiotic cream and ice? Very well. Okay, antibiotic alone. Okay, might be enough. Problem is the girl closes the eyes, and so our graft would be upturned, and so there would be no contact with the ocular surface. We are talking about not a flap, but a graft, so it should be vascularized from behind. So again, we are back to bourdonnais, so mild compression with a traction suture, keeping the eye pulled downward, and so there will be a uncovered surface. And then ice, certainly not, because ice causes vasoconstriction. We have a graft and we need capillaries and vessels and vascularization. So with ice, we would damage it all. So I would say that in terms of outcome, this is quite good. There are many young people here, and the eye consists in everything surrounding it. It isn't only the globe. So let's see how we resolved the issue. This is the patient in the room. As you may see, there isn't any damage on the conjunctiva. The design of the eyelid rim is about 5 centimeters, and so the extension of the whole eyelid. So we have the tarsus, the elevator, we have the septum with the fat, and then the aponeurosis of the elevator. We shouldn't, we didn't need to touch any of this. And then the harvesting of the retroauricular skin, so from the ear and the rocca petrosa, and then the finer one, the thinner one. And mind you, once we have harvested, we should coagulate all vessels because retroauricular hematoma is very difficult to resolve. And the harvesting should be made very carefully. You have to be very accurate. You shouldn't touch the perichondrium. And so this is our graft. That's the medication. As you may see, there isn't any hematoma behind the ear. The Bordonnais on the eyelid and the first suture, and after 6 months, this is the child who came from Congo, and this is the outcome with the eyelids open and